Up until 1870, only a small portion of Africa was under European control. By the end of the 19th century, European nationalism was reaching its height, and Europe's superpowers wanted to expand in order to prove that they were the best. In 1884 through 1885, Otto von Bismarck called 12 other European countries and the United States to meet in the German capital to discuss imperial ambitions. Germany, Austria-Hungary, Belgium, Denmark, Spain, the United States, France, the United Kingdom, Italy, the Netherlands, Portugal, Russia, Sweden, Norway, and the Ottoman Empire all met to discuss what to do with Africa. Each attending country signed the resulting agreement. The conference was spurred on by the German fear that the British and French were going so fast in colonizing that Germany may be left out. Although all of these countries had a say in the conference, it is clear to see that Britain and France came out ahead. Amongst the rules set in place in the conference was the decision to leave the Congo Basin and the Niger and Congo rivers open to free trade by all signatories. There was also a proposal to end all African or Islamic slavery on the continent, although this was likely added in order to appease public morality. There were also a number of minor territorial disputes that needed resolution, but besides one, they were not all that significant. Really, the only major territory issue was between Britain and Portugal over the, quote, pink map. The pink map was a plan of Portugal's colonial ambitions in Africa. Britain ignored the conference's decision to side with Portugal, and just took the land 5 years later. With the conclusion of the Berlin Conference, the scramble for Africa began. First off, there are a few major points you will need to know for why European colonization of Africa took off in the late 19th century. First was the invention of the machine gun. Warfare between industrial nations and more primitive people had not always gone as you'd expect. Often the amount of time it took to reload a rifle was a major inconvenience compared to the quicker firing rate of a bow or attacking with a spear. The machine gun changed that, allowing the Western powers technological advantage to help with both power and speed. The discovery of quinine helped combat dangerous African diseases such as malaria, which had previously halted European expansion. The invention of the steamboat was integral in colonizing Central Africa. It allowed for Europeans to make their way along rivers into the continent's center much easier and faster. Europeans rationalized their colonization on both moral and political grounds. Many saw the Africans as savages that needed to be civilized by Western powers. Others saw it as the white man's burden, taken from a poem by Rudyard Kipling, to take care of these, quote, uncivilized peoples. Christianization of Africans was another motive claimed for a reason to colonize. Politically, overseas colonies were seen as a symbol of national strength. Thus, nationalism was a huge contributing factor in support of imperialism. Africa not only provided vast amounts of natural resources for Western industry, but also granted Europe a new market to sell their goods. I will definitely go into more detail about European imperialism in a later video, but in this one I'm just going to go over the basics so I don't overwhelm or bore anyone with too much talking. The newly redrawn map of Africa is probably the most important thing to go over for now. The British Empire was by far the largest empire, not only of its time, but also in all of human history, but that's another topic to discuss later. In Africa, Britain's major colonies were Egypt, Sudan, British East Africa, such as Kenya and Uganda, Bechuanaland, Rhodesia, South Africa, and British West Africa, such as Gambia, Sierra Leone, and Nigeria. France, the second largest empire, owned French West Africa, such as Senegal, French Sudan, Ivory Coast, and Niger, French Equatorial Africa, French North Africa, Algeria, Tunisia, and French Morocco, and French East Africa, Madagascar and Somaliland. Belgium, of course, owned the Congo, well, technically King Leopold II of Belgium owned the Congo, it was considered his own personal property. The Conference of Berlin simply re-established this fact. Germany had Cameroon, German East Africa, which was Rwanda and Tanzania, Namibia, and Togoland. After World War I, these colonies were stripped from the German Empire and given to Allied empires. The other countries were Italy, who had Libya and Eritrea, along with small portions of Ethiopia, Portugal, who owned Angola and Mozambique, Spain, who had parts of Morocco and West Africa. By the end, only Abyssinia, which is now known as Ethiopia, and Liberia were left independent. In this video, for both sake of time and sanity, I will not be going over the pros and cons of imperialism, nor will I discuss any further detail on these colonies. That is a very heavy and complicated topic that deserves its own video. Instead, I will just leave it right here. Now you have set up for the 19th and 20th century imperialism. That being said, I'm sure you're wondering, is this a two-part video? Yes and no. No, there will not be a part 2 on the Berlin Conference and the Scramble for Africa. However, there will be, relatively soon hopefully, videos on both imperialism and the British Empire. So keep an eye out for those. Imperialism is one of my favorite parts of history, along with world wars, so this will definitely not be the last video you see on this topic. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe. I'm Matthew, and I hope I see you next time.
Goodbye, goodbye, where's the tear, baby dear, from your eye? Though it's hard to part, I know, I'll feel sick of the death to go, don't cry, don't die. There's a silver lining in the sky. Bonsoir, old thing, cheerio, chin chin, na boo, toodaloo, goodbye.